Okay, as Tom said, I'm Shelley Bazelak. I'm an OSU Lake County Master Gardener volunteer. I want to thank you for being here. This is a little bit different for me today. I'm usually up and walking around and talking to my audience, so it's almost like I'm practicing. But I am doing continuous color using perennials, so let's get started.
Hey, Shelley, one thing I forgot to tell people, we are not going to,
Yeah.
you are not going to be able to actually ask questions during the presentation. I would just ask you in the bottom of your toolbar, there is a chat box right in the middle. If you have a question for Shelley, please put it in the chat. And at the end of her presentation, I will read those chats to her and she can respond. I apologize for interrupting. Go ahead, Shelley.
That's okay, Tom. Thank you. We are, the Master Gardener program is part of the extension program, and the extension does all sorts of different things: family and consumer sciences, 4-H youth development, community development, and agricultural and natural resources, which we are part of. We are the OSU Lake County Master Gardeners. Right now, you can reach us at 99 East Erie Street in Paynesville, but sometime in the future, once we get back doing normal things, that's going to change fairly soon. But our phone number should stay the same, and that's 440-350-2582. We are also on Facebook through Ohio State University Extension Lake County Master Gardeners. Make sure you get the Ohio State part in there, otherwise you're going to end up with a Florida Lake County Master Gardener program. And our website is lake.osu.edu. We're looking at one garden here in 4 seasons: spring, summer, fall, and winter. And as you can see, spring is very vibrant. Summer is a little more muted, but fall gets vibrant again. And in the winter, there is still interest. The bare bones of the gardens show the interest, even in the snow. The first thing you have to do is make a plan. Draw a rough sketch of your garden. Your shrubs, your trees, your existing plants, walls, anything that's in your garden, mark it. Evaluate your site. How large of an area do you have? Do you need a soil test? How about existing structures? Is there a water source? Maintenance, think about that. Do you want high maintenance or low? What type of light do you have? What type of moisture do you have? And are you protected or windy? The area of the garden. Here, this small garden on the left was an incubator bed I had. But this larger garden is part of Warwick Castle in England, and this is a tunnel made out of rose bushes. Soil test. If you think you need a soil test, go to our website and follow the link to the soil test. To do that, you click on the Master Gardener side. Click on soil testing, Penn State, again on the left. And when the office opens up again, you could come into the office to purchase a kit. And then when you get the kit, you follow the instructions. You send it in and wait for an answer. And when you get the answer, you can call the office or email us right now if you need help reading it. Now, while you are waiting for the soil test to come back, look at your structures around your house. Do you have a tree somewhere? Or how close is your house to your garden? Do you have some sort of a fence right here? Or maybe your nice son built a wall for you because he's a hardscaper. How about your water source? You should have one close at hand, and it should be easily accessible. Believe me, you don't want to be carrying buckets of water 100 yards off to your plants. Maintenance. How much work do you want to put into this garden? Do you want a bunch of prima donna plants like this rose tree? Or do you want something that's a little more happy-go-lucky and low maintenance like some daylilies? Light. What type light do you have at your place or where your garden is going to be? Do you have full sun that gets 8+ more hours a day of direct sun? Or do you have part sun and part shade, which is 4 to 6 hours of direct sun? Maybe you have shade, which is only 1 to 3 hours of direct sun. Or you could have some deep shade like I do, which is no direct sunlight at all, only reflected sunlight. Moisture. How much do you have on your property? This is standing water. Do you have any of that? You may need to do something, put in a French drain or something else. Or is it very dry? This is a wall on the side of my house before there was another house there. At that point, that got full sun. Now it's only deep shade. So there's a difference. Or here you might have moist but well-drained soil. We live in a walkout, and so it's sloped, and this is great. In this area, I rarely have to water. Even when we had that drought a few years ago, I only watered a few times there. How much wind movement do you have? I have a lot being on the lake. There's nothing between Canada and me, and we get full brunt of the wind. Or do you have little or no wind movement because you're sheltered? What type of a garden do you want to have? Do you want a butterfly garden? Something like this where you attract butterflies? Or do you want a cutting garden? Or a garden? How about a garden that's kid friendly that your kids or your grandkids could come in and help you with? Do you want a pollinator garden? Here's one of our friendly bee pollinators hanging around. Do you want a privacy garden, a garden that shuts you off from your neighbors? Or do you want a veggie garden? But just remember that veggies and fruits can be put into any of these other gardens. I have strawberries and blueberries and tomatoes in with my flowers. We're looking at perennials mainly today. What is a perennial? A perennial will last 3 or more years if it's hardy in your zone. A biennial will last 2 years but may reseed itself and let you think that it's a perennial. A good example of this is hollyhock. Your garden can include flowers, bulbs, woodies, shrubs, trees, and biennials to give you continuous color throughout the season. Perennials in other zones are annuals here. Example, a poinsettia. Another example of this, I went blank, I'm sorry. But perennials here are annuals in other zones. Example, carpet phlox. When now you should have received your soil test kit after you've done all this other stuff. And if we open up again, you can, in the near future, you can bring it into us, or you can email us and we will help you decipher it. Most likely, you will want to amend your soil. You can tweak your soil's pH to change the color on some plants. Example, this hydrangea down here. I added aluminum sulfite, and you can see how blue these got. And then the pink ones were kind of a base. And this one down here is a blushing bride. It's white with just a tinge of pink. However, one year I added too much aluminum sulfite and it became a blushing groom. Now it's fun time, picking out your plants. Do you know what zone you're in? It is said that Ohio has changed. Officially, parts of northern Ohio by the most of Ohio State and some scattered spots are 5B. However, to stay safe, I stay at 5B. I really don't buy plants too often that are above that because we still get those winters that have some great Arctic blasts, and we don't want to lose our plants. Pets. Do you have any pets? Make sure some plants are toxic to our pets. If you go to aspca.org and type in plants poisonous to dogs or animals, it comes up with a list for you, and it's a great thing to know. What about deer? Do they frequent your yard? If they do, make sure that you buy plants that are deer resistant. No plant is deer proof, and if they're hungry, they will eat just about anything. The tag or the label that you get when you buy a plant is a great source of information and wealth. They can tell you all sorts of different things. This tells you the key benefits, the time when it flowers, which is always good to know, its hardiness zone, what type sun exposure it needs. And I like this one a lot because it tells you how to plant it. This one gives you description of it, um, where to position it, how much water it needs. This one even shows you a picture of the flower. This tells you it's a perennial, how tall it's going to be, and how wide. You need to know how wide the plant's going to get so you know how far apart to space your plants. It also gives you the watering needs here. And these are great. Some people will even put these in a photo album, or my husband collects baseball cards and he has special inserts in the photo album type thing. And you can just stick them in there and save them and refer back to them. Now, what do you look for in the plants that you're picking out? Look for the blooms. Do you like the blooms? Do you like the color? Do they last a long time? Look at the foliage. Is it just kind of blah? Does it change color? Is it variegated? And what type fruit does the plant get? You're probably thinking right now, fruit, plants don't get fruit, but they do. Those are their seeds. And what type bark do they get or have? The bark, some bark on trees will flake off and look different. Some's rough, some smooth, some shiny. So think about all that sort of thing. Now the following slides are going to be broken up by the time the plant begins to bloom. Some bloom up to 3 to 4 weeks and will overlap into the next season. But many, if you deadhead them, will be prolonged in their bloom time. Early spring. The Helleborus, or the Lenten rose, it's one of the earliest. Brunera, I love this. It has such dainty blue flowers and the foliage on this one. I think this is just an airy, beautiful little plant. Grape hyacinth, the greenery comes up in the fall and it will stay with you all winter. And that's good and bad. It will give you some color, but it also attracts the bunnies, which like to eat the foliage. Last year I got no blooms. This year I did. Even though they ate the foliage, they stopped before it budded. Grecian windflower. These are another one of my favorite. They often are the first spot of riotous color out, and they're small. They stay close to the ground, but they're adorable. Drops, they're so named because you may see their blooms peeking up through the snow. And this is an early spring combination. Now mid-spring, you get your bleeding heart. They now have continuous blooming varieties. I have one and they do bloom throughout summer. The older varieties, however, will disappear in midsummer and they make you think that your plant has died. Creeping phlox, I like that one. It's out and blooming now and it will spread and cascade over a wall for you if you let it. And it tends to be an evergreen. Daffodils, yes, I know they're a bulb, they're not a perennial, but they come up in the spring and there are so many different color and varieties of daffodils. Yes, they're all of the yellow family, but they still have many shades and varieties. And you can find them that bloom early, mid, and late season. Hyacinths have great color and fragrance. Tulips, don't even bother at my house. They're a beautiful deer lunch buffet. I learned the hard way. And here's a mid-spring combination. Late spring. The alliums, I absolutely adore alliums. You can get some that are little teeny tiny, no bigger than a dime head, or you can get some that are bigger than softballs. Many varieties bloom from May to June, and they're deer resistant. The deer really don't like the taste of them very much. And the blooms dry and will add interest to your gardens. And they can be left on, or you can cut them off and use them for crafts. My granddaughter and I spray painted them one summer before the 4th and used them as decoration. Just please don't spray paint them and leave them in your yard. Iris, they're carefree, sweet smelling, and have lovely foliage, and they again are a semi-evergreen foliage. This is a Miss Kim bush, um, and some of the newer Miss Kim varieties are ever bloomers. Just make sure when you trim those, and with any flowering shrub, in fact, you trim them right after they bloom. If you would trim a Miss Kim in the spring or in the summer, late summer, you would cut off all the blooms, or in the fall, you would cut off all the blooms for the next year. So don't do it. And this is a very young, old-fashioned lilac bush. That bush right now is um, probably 10 feet tall. And this was taken a few weeks ago, right when the buds first started breaking out and emerging. The peonies, these pictures are of a tree peony. The tree peony will bloom about a week to 2 weeks before the regular peony bushes do. But the interesting thing about the tree peony is that it gives you bones in your garden in the winter time. My tree peony is about 4.5 feet tall. I can still look over the top of it. Those of you who know me know I'm just under 5 foot. So if it ever gets taller than I am, then it's growing a little too tall. A poppy, they come in many different colors, not just red anymore. And a Weigelia, they will do an absolutely beautiful, huge bloom show in the beginning. And some of them now will even continue to bloom throughout the season. Not like this, of course, because this is its best show, but it will have blooms on it throughout the season. And this is a late spring combination. Early summer, you get your astilbe blooming. You can leave the dried flowers up to show for interest. They again come in a lot of different colors, red, pink, lavender, and they like a little bit of a shaded environment. They do well in my deep shade garden. As you can see, the house was built. Coral bells are absolutely great. They stay colorful all season. You don't really plant them for their flowers because their flowers are kind of wispy little things that don't amount to much, but their foliage is absolutely gorgeous. And they come in so many different colors of foliage. You can get them bright green, you can get them this caramel color, you can get them this pinkish and a darker burgundy. And the last few winters, they have stayed beautiful in my garden all season. Coneflowers, they start and then they will continue all summer long. If you deadhead them, the blooms will not be quite as large after the first bloom, but you will get other blooms, and you can leave, or you could leave them on there because the seed heads are of interest. Catmint. This is a really hard-working little plant. The first flush of bloom is really great. And when it gets kind of scraggly looking, you just, I don't want to say mow it down, but you cut it back and it comes up again looking great, just like the first time it came up. But you've got to be careful. It will spread. Anything with the word mint in it is a spreader. And just like any name of a bush, like or plant like bishop's weed, if it has weed in it, these are clues. Hydrangea, they've got to be one of my favorite flowers out there. Once they start blooming, they're with you all summer long. Um, some of them change color. We talked before about adding aluminum sulfite and getting blue. This is a Nico blue. This is that blushing bride. And this is one I did not add aluminum sulfate to. And this one is a pink one. It will always stay pink. This is a lace cap, this one over here. And again, they like water. Now, my very favorite new hydrangea is this vanilla strawberry hydrangea. You get a real bang for your buck with this one. It does get quite tall. It has reached about 8 feet at my house. When I got it, the tag told me it was only going to be 4.5 feet. So I was a little surprised that it got that large. And I didn't intend to have a privacy garden, but that's what happened. It starts out white when it first starts blooming in July, and then it will go to pink, and this whole blossom will become pink. And then in the fall, you get this beautiful burgundy. But it is a hydrangea, and it does have this hydrae in here, which means it needs to be hydrated, water. So it does take a lot of water. Even though it gets a little bit more sun, it still needs a lot of water. Now your midsummer flowers, believe it or not, California lily of the Nile can come back here. It is a perennial. It's one of the ones I like to push the envelope with. I keep mine by 2 sunny walls, so it's kind of enclosed. And in the winter, I cover it up. But I love it. Balloon flowers are another favorite one of mine. My mother-in-law started me on these. They will start blooming in July. And if you deadhead these, if you are consistent in going out and deadheading them, I've had them last through just about the 1st of September. Blazing Star, these are a fun little one. They bloom from the top down, and their foliage turns bronze in the fall. They remind me of July Arbor. They just kind of look like that to me. Butterfly bush, I love the butterfly bush. They can get quite large. Most of the ones we see in the garden centers are the medium-sized ones. One of my girlfriends had one that was humongous. She lives in Pennsylvania, and in the back of her yard, it was huge. It had to be 12 feet tall. It was just huge. But now they also have the micro mini variety, which if you only have a little tiny space, you can put this little guy in there. And they say it doesn't get above 18 inches. Mine hasn't even gotten that big yet. When we were in the UK a couple years ago, we took the train back from Edinburgh to Cambridge, and all along the train track were butterfly bushes. This picture was taken out of a moving train, so if it's a little blurry, that's why. But they're like weeds there. Make sure you deadhead them to bring new blooms, and it will also cut back on the reseeding of the butterfly bush. Hardy crepe myrtle. Yes, it really is hardy. These were taken in my yard before I planted my vanilla strawberry hydrangea. I love the crepe myrtle, but the year I planted the vanilla strawberry hydrangea is the year that we had the polar vortex come in. And I thought for sure these guys were dead. So I waited pretty late. I think I waited till about the 1st of June, and I tried to see if they were still living because they were supposed to be, and I couldn't find anything. So I went out and I bought my vanilla strawberry hydrangeas, and I was digging with my shovel to plant them. And do you know, the roots I hadn't gotten out when I took those out had sprouted. And when I drive around Willowick, I see there are at least 3 or 4 houses that have quite large ones of these crepe myrtles. Hostas, they come in a variety of colors and bloom time, and some of them can even withstand a great deal of sun. Phlox, I like the big boy phlox. They come in many colors and sizes, and deadheading brings more blooms. Make sure you space them far enough apart so they don't get powdery mildew, because they need good airflow between the plants. And one of our friendly deer taught me that if you pinch them back in the spring, you can trick them into blooming a little later. Rogerza, this is another one I really like. It comes in a couple different colors of lighter, like here, and I really love the pink. It's a shade lover, and it needs moist but well-drained soil, and they are a relative of the astilbe. Sea holly is another one I color has, and it's long-lasting interest. These are seed heads in here, and they will stay. And they remind me of a 4th of July firework too. Yarrow, I love yarrow. I love the pink yarrow. I'm not much for yellow. Once yarrow starts, it doesn't stop. If you deadhead it, you can either deadhead each individual bloom, or you can just cut it back, and it will come back and look gorgeous again. But it will spread, so you might have to be yanking it out along the way. Here is a midsummer collection. Late summer, the aster. Bees love aster, and it is a sort. Hibiscus used to be all you could get was the tall variety, but now in the last 8 years or so, they've got this bush variety out there. Deadheading helps prolong the blooming, but not very much since they are such a late season. Monkshood, I would never have this in my garden because of my animals. They are poisonous, but they are late season color if you're not concerned about animals. Mums, contrary to popular belief, mums are perennials. They are not annuals, as the garden centers would like you to think, because then you will buy more. But if you plant them deeply, they will come up every year. Sedum. Sedum comes in many colors and varieties and heights and shades. If you trim it back in the spring, or let the deer do it for you, it won't flop over. And here is a late summer collection. Now the fall, a toad lily. It's a very small and delicate shade lover. It likes to hide and peek out, but it's very pretty. Turtlehead, this is the hot lips variety of turtleheads. It's a shade lover that likes moist, well-drained soil. It blooms from the bottom up, and it's a slow spreader. This stand is about 11 years old right now. I brought some from my house in Columbus when we moved up, and I think I only brought like one clump, and it has just spread. But again, it's been 11 years. An ornamental cabbage. Yes, I know ornamental cabbage is an annual. And fall, it's that light color, and it looks really pretty peeking out of the snow too. How about a sugar maple? Have you considered, trees? Sugar maples have gorgeous color in the fall. And here's a fall combination. You see some roses and a holly. Here's a burning bush in the back. And here's a burning bush in November in Columbus at my daughter's house, and she has a lovely rose bush there still blooming. Have you thought about using Oriental and Asian lilies? They're bulbs, yes, but they can start blooming from late spring and continue. Some varieties bloom in midsummer. I even plant my Easter lilies every year. I just put them in the ground this year, and here's some blooming on their own. These were not just stuck in the ground, but they came up in my yard. Daylilies. Daylilies are easy, they're carefree, they come in a multitude of colors. The only one color they really don't have yet is blue, and they keep trying. But daylilies bloom from early season to very late season. They now have reblooming daylilies. And if you plant them with your spring bulbs, their foliage will grow and cover the dying bulb foliage, which is a plus because you want to leave the bulb foliage up so that the nutrients go back down to the bulb for next season. I've been known to split my daylilies and give away spring bulbs with them. Pansies, yes, this is another annual, but it's what I consider a volunteer type of plant. I put some out very early in the spring of 2009, and I still see surprise pansies every year. They reseed themselves. Roses, they're a great rebloomer, especially if you get the knockouts. Some of the very old-fashioned roses will just bloom once and then they're done, but more often than not these days, the roses will continue. I suggest sub-zero roses because those can take those polar vortexes that we have. One thing to watch out for now I'd say it's probably been 7-8 years, this rosette disease is out there. It started on wild roses and has transferred over to our hybrid roses. And it makes the branches witch's broom like this. You see this, you need to dig it out of your garden and destroy the plant because it is very contagious. How about trying some shrubs? Azaleas now have reblooming varieties. Blueberries, like I said, I have a blueberry bush in with my flower garden. Butterfly bushes, they bloom once they start, they don't stop. Dogwood, this is a red twig dogwood, and imagine how pretty that's going to look in the winter standing in the snow. And it's the new growth that's red. Holly, you saw some holly in one of my slides. The Korean spice viburnum, I just took this yesterday. I have a baby bush. It's only been in about 2 years, and it was quite small when I got it. But it's blooming now. I have 2 blooms on it, and they smell wonderful. And lilacs, as I said, they have rebloomers. How about some flowering trees? Here's a weeping cherry in my neighbor's yard. And crabapple, this is my crabapple tree. That was a couple years ago, and here's an up-close picture of the blooms. We've talked about crepe myrtle. There are red buds, and they have some miniature weeping red buds out now too. Or you can have a tulip tree, and those flower. Buckeye trees flower, they're a little larger. Grasses, there are many lovely ornamental grasses for sun or shade. This is fountain grass Carly Rose. There's hardy pampas grass, blue lime grass, blue fescue, and perennial fountain grass. There are some helpful websites. Ours is up on top, the lake.osu.edu. And the Urbana extension from Illinois has a great website. If you go there, just type in perennials, and it should pop up with a bunch of different ones. We have Ohio Line, and there is Beagle, BGYL, and also the ASPCA, don't forget that. Thank you for attending. I hope you found the presentation educational and enjoyable. I'm glad you were all here. Okay.